Good afternoon. Our presentation today is titled Right Plant for the Right Place, a very timely topic. So many problems caused in a landscaper by putting the wrong plant in the wrong place, places where they cannot grow good. 80% of plant problems result from the inability of the plant to tolerate or adapt to the environment. Insect and diseases observed on plants are often attacked secondarily after plants have been stressed by the environment. Our prime example would be azaleas. These plants prefer somewhat shady location. They can take some sun, but they need to have shade. There's an insect called a lace bug, which has a pure sucking mouth part and gets on the leaves and causes discoloration. Azaleas planted in full sun are more likely to suffer from lace bugs than those in shade. Site consideration. We need to take the items into consideration. Sunlight. Does it take sun or shade, or can it tolerate both? Water. Can it take dry conditions? Can it handle waterlogged soils? Temperatures. Can it handle our extreme heat and cold? Soil pH. What type of pH? Does it do better in a more alkaline pH or a more acidic pH? Climate. Is it adapted to our climate? Hardiness. Can it handle the heat and the cold? Lack of space. Does it have adequate amount of space to grow? Select plants adapted to the site and the local environmental conditions. Here's the example of junipers grown under a large Bradford pear of trees. Junipers prefer full sun and well-drained soil. Obviously, these junipers are not getting that. They're being shaded, thus they're thinning out and beginning to thin out and suffer and decline, dying out. Bermuda grass is a very tough grass. It can tolerate hot, dry conditions, compacted soils, but it does not tolerate shady areas. Every few years, you'll get some company will come out with shade-tolerant Bermuda grass, but it is not. It may shade tolerant. It may persist in shade a little bit more than other varieties, but it will not be able to tolerate partial or full shade. As you notice here, there's some moss growing. Often I get phone calls from customers saying that there's moss taking over their lawn, and it's usually caused by several things: shade, poorly drained soils, compacted soils, acidic soils. So to get rid of that, you would need to change the moss, the conditions that are causing the moss to grow. Certain grass can tolerate shadier locations than others. St. Augustine and zoysia can tolerate dappled or filtered shade from trees, but not deep shade. The same with tall fescue. This Bermuda grass sod was sodded on the north side of a building. As you can tell right here, that it's getting full shade and the drainage is not good. So this sod will deteriorate rapidly and die. Dogwood trees are in nature are understory trees. They're smaller trees that grow under larger trees. And here's a dogwood tree that is planted in full sun near concrete, thus stressing it out. It's deteriorating, as you can tell by the dead branches. Also, look toward the bottom, you see suckers coming out. That is also a sign the tree is under stress. These rhododendrons are attractive. They have nice flowers, but unfortunately, they're on the south side of a building. And they were planted there just because the house was up for sale and real estate people wanted to sell it. But as you can see, it's in full sun with concrete, pavement, and bricks. Thus, it will radiate heat. These rhododendrons prefer shady locations and moist organic soil, and they're not going to get that here, and in time they deteriorate it. Kubas are very nice shrubs. They can grow to a height of about 12 to 15 feet. They add to screens, and especially good for deep shade, where you can't get other things to grow in that shade. This will grow. Unfortunately, it cannot handle the full sun. If exposed to full sun, they deteriorate and start developing sun scald. Thus, the plant will suffer and eventually decline. Someone planted these big leaf hydrangeas on a parking lot island in July. Thought it would make the island look beautiful. Within a week, they were dead. Big leaf hydrangeas need shade to partial shade, and they also need to have moist soil. This is a very important statement. More plants are killed in Georgia from overwatering than from the lack of watering. Irrigated areas are often overwatered and watered too frequently. When the soil is waterlogged, roots die and decay and the top declines. Here's an example of some shore junipers. Though it's on a slope and is heavily clay soil, it looks like these junipers are old and have grown into each other and cause a lot of growth, thus causing the soil to have poor drainage. And they have deteriorated over time as a result of it. Bermuda grass is a section in a low area where the Bermuda grass is the poor drainage and the grass is thinned out as a result of it. Establishing a French drain or some other type of drainage structure would help, or perhaps just do away with grass in that low area and just put pine straw there. These are boxwoods. Boxwoods are sensitive plants, and one thing they don't like is fluctuating water in the soil, especially soil that has too much water. If you look behind, you'll see a downspout flooding the roots of this plant, causing it to deteriorate and die. These look like several arborvitaes that have been bunched up together. They're growing into each other, and the one over there by the closest to is growing into the gutter, causing the gutter to get clogged, spill out, and the water's going onto the plant, thus causing root rot and the plant to deteriorate. These plants should not be planted that close to the building, and they shouldn't be planted so close to each other. Here's an example of Japanese cryptomerias were installed in this planter, on an above ground planter. Thus, it makes it more susceptible to drying out from the sun and the heat and the wind. These have deteriorated and died because of it. Obviously, I could see irrigation boxes there, but obviously the irrigation wasn't running. Landscape company that installed this is going to have to replace these, and these trees are expensive. So if the irrigation had been used properly, they wouldn't be in this situation. Select plants adapted to the site and the local environmental conditions. This is very important. You need to have the plant that will grow where it's planted. In Georgia, we have 5 hardiness zones, cold hardiness zones. As you can see, Gwinnett County is in 7B, but down on the coast is 8B. So there's a somewhat different hardiness zones. This is a cherry tree. And cherry trees, the Yoshinos, the Kwanzans, the Okamis, and a couple other types, they produce beautiful blossoms in the spring, but they are not adapted to our climate. And the heat and humidity, in addition to the clay soil, and they don't like acidic soils. They prefer a higher pH, 6.5 to 7.0. You wouldn't want to place azaleas at the bottom of these, since azaleas prefer acidic soil. Also, they suffer from a leaf spot disease, and especially in wet years, the leaf spots will cause a tree to lose all of its leaves by mid-August. So definitely cherry trees, they do well in DC, but they won't do well around here, so they should not be planted. There's another picture of a Yoshino cherry tree that's 15 years old. These trees, there's other spring flowering plants such as crab apples that would be far better suited for our area than the cherry trees. These are live oaks in savanna. When we think of savanna, we think of the large live oaks that grow down there and thrive. They're evergreens and they're the state tree. In savanna and coastal areas, they grow well, they thrive, and they can grow to a large size. However, here in North Georgia, they don't grow as well. They can grow them, but they won't grow anywhere near the size that they are in savanna. However, there is one over at the DeKalb County Extension Office, Memorial Drive and 285, that has reached about 20 feet in height. That's the only one I've seen grow to any size in our area. Other ones stay relatively small. Got a call from a client one time, and they sent me a picture of this Alberta spruce, saying it was dying, it was deteriorating. Planted it a couple years ago and it's deteriorating. Well, the name should give it away. Alberta spruce. It thrives in Alberta, but it's not going to do well in Georgia. A lot of these coniferous trees like spruces and firs cannot tolerate our heat and are more suited to colder northern climates. White pines are frequently planted in our area. The hot temperatures and soil causes them to deteriorate over time. When I worked in commercial landscaping, I cut numerous ones out. Here's one, I believe this is at Stone Mountain Park. Now, if we go a little further north up into the mountains, an example would be the 4-H Camp Wausiga near Dahlonega. These white pines grow to a very large height and they thrive up in that area. And it's even more so up in the Asheville, North Carolina area. But not down here. Better to plant some other type of pine tree instead of a Virginia pine or a loblolly pine instead of one of these. Think about turf grasses. St. Augustine grass is a beautiful turf grass.
What? Turn the TV off. Yes.
It was October 16th for the undergrads, but December 18th for the math.
Mm-hmm.
We had a little technical hiccup here. Anyhow, this right here is a pittosporums, the Japanese pittosporums. They grow very well. They in the coastal areas, but up here in North Georgia, they don't do that well. As I was mentioning about the same goes with the St. Augustine grass I was just talking about. It can handle the cold temperature. It can handle the shadier areas like zoysia grass and tall fescue, the filtered shade, but not the deep shade. However, St. Augustine grass can suffer as a result of the extremely cold temperatures in our area. Any type of citrus plants will not do well in our area. Planting them outdoors, they will suffer and die as a result of cold damage. Often we get these people saying, lemons, we got this new lemon tree that will grow during the cold weather. It can handle our cold, but that's not the case. If you have citrus plants, you can grow them in containers and bring them indoors. But they will not grow outside year-round in our areas. In South Georgia, they have areas where the citrus crop is being grown. There are certain types down there, but not in our cold climate. Consider the mature size and shape of ornamental plants when determining their location and spacing in the landscape. Dwarf Burford hollies. This is supposed to be a dwarf Burford holly. As you can see, it grows up to 20 feet tall. So unless it's pruned and kept dwarf, it can grow to a pretty good size. Dwarf Cypress, the same thing. This is one of the most problematic plants I see, Leyland Cypress. I cannot tell you how many of these things that people called and say that their Leyland Cypress tree is deteriorating. Several things are the cause. As you can see, well, they grow over 100 feet tall in cooler climates. Up here in North Georgia, it gets about 50 to 60 feet tall and 15 to 20 feet wide. And they grow into each other if they're planted too close. They'll shade each other out. They're more prone to getting canker disease, fungal canker disease. Best course of action is not to plant them, or if you're going to plant them, put them about 20 feet apart, 15 to 20 feet apart, or use alternatives to the Leyland Cypress, such as the Nellie R. Stevens holly, Foster hollies, wax myrtles, or in shadier sites, you can look at the possibility of those Japanese akuba I showed you earlier. This is an example of some Leyland Cypress trees that were planted in a small area on the side of a building. Obviously, this is the wrong place for these trees. Thinking of the size that they will grow, outgrow this area very rapidly, as they're already doing so in this picture. This mess of plants were just thrown together. They're planted too close together. They haven't been pruned and maintained. They've grown up so high that they're obscuring this home. That makes it more prone for security. It can make it prone to breaking in. And also, it makes it more prone to pests and rodent problems. This site right here, these are crepe myrtles that have been planted too close to each other. It would be best to remove every second and third one, and just leave those ones up that are on the front. That gives you more room, so they're not growing into each other. This is another site where you can see the junipers and hollies. It looks like some boxwoods and a few other barberries, some lirio. All that's just jammed together. It's growing into each other. It's very unattractive, and these plants are more stressed since they're competing for nutrients and space. This is a blue Atlas cedar on a parking lot island in a shopping center. Blue Atlas cedar can grow 60 to 70 feet tall and 20 feet wide. Obviously, it doesn't have space on that parking lot island. So that's an inappropriate plant for that site. Choose low maintenance plants. Certain plants require more care than others. The ideal low maintenance plants has moderate growth, few pest problems, and produces no messy fruits, pods, or shedding branches. No landscape is perfect. Choose those with the fewest flaws. This is a gold dust euonymus that is heavily infested with scale insects. This type of plant has a serious problem with these pests. The best course of action, if you have them, is to cut down and remove them, or don't plant them in the first place. There's hollies that could be used as alternatives. Shadier areas of kubas. These are red-tip latinias. Over time, these plants, they were overplanted back in the 1970s and 80s, and the Entomosporium leaf spot started affecting it. Normally, leaf spot diseases do not kill plants, but this disease, which is a fungus, does in a situation like this. We all know about the large Bradford pears and the problems that they cause. They break off, they split, and they can create a lot of problems. They have that fast-growing wood. They have these narrow angle crotches, which makes them more prone to breakage. They produce flowers that have an unpleasant smell, and they've been shown to hybridize with other pear trees and are becoming invasive. You'll see large thickets of them growing in areas, and a lot of them have thorns, the invasive ones. That's my contact information. Thank you for joining this webinar. We will have more in the future. Thank you very much.